Today we'll show you how to properly upgrade the 1.8 Civic. This actually doesn't apply just to the Civic, it applies to everything with the Honda R8 R series engine, which includes the CRV, the HRV, the Civic, all generations from this one, the FD, it's just '06 all the up to the present one, the 1.8. It's still the same engine up to 2024. They haven't changed it. So, and the CRV, the R21, I think only appeared in one generation, the third generation. That's about it. Yeah, so everything will be the same. The intake will be the same. The header will be the same. The exhaust piping will be the same. I mean, even the remapping procedure will be exactly the same for anything that has the R series engine. So we'll start by taking out the stock components, which is the intake and the whole exhaust, and then we're gonna be putting it on the dyno. Then we'll be remapping it by reading the stock ECU and pulling out the data. We'll modify that and write it back to the ECU. Okay, we've removed the stock intake, and this is all there is to it. Actually, there's still a big silencer here at the bottom, which we just leave. We don't really need that anymore. So the important thing that a lot of people ask is what happens to the sensor, which is over here. This is the mass airflow sensor. That has to go back. If this doesn't go back, the car won't run. So we're changing out with a short ram intake. So basically we're replacing this entire thing. We're changing this out with a K&N cone filter. So the biggest advantage of having a cone filter is that there's a lot more flow to the filter. So you guys have been masking for the last 2 years. So it's easiest way is the stock filter is you have a mask, and if you change to a K&N, you just take off the mask. So you breathe a lot easier. You breathe in the same amount of air, so your lung capacity doesn't increase. It's still about 4 liters for an adult. The same way that by changing to a K&N filter, you do not increase the air volume. That's a number one misconception and number one wrong thing that people keep saying on the internet. By changing to a open type intake, you increase the volume of air going to the car. Wrong. That is totally wrong. It's still 1.8 liters. It does not magically become 1.9. It does not magically become 2. What happens is you increase the flow, or how fast or how easy the air gets into the engine. So that's why it's called a mass airflow sensor and not a mass volume sensor. And so here we have our entire intake system. So it consists of the tube here. This is where the sensor mount is. This is the K&N filter. This is reusable, washable. You wash it once a year, and this will last you the entire lifetime. Or as I can say right now, by the time that we're all driving electric cars, this will still work. This will still filter. And this is the stock exhaust system of the Civic. This is the start of it. This is the header. It is a 1-1 header. It's not 4-1. It's not 4-2-1. So mind you, anything that you researched on the internet will not be applicable to this engine. So don't even bother trying. This big fat thing here, this is the catalytic converter. This will be get rid of that because that's a major source of restriction. And yes, you will still pass emissions. This thing here is the oxygen sensor. This is the primary sensor. This is the secondary sensor. Both of these have to go back. If they don't go back, then that's where the check engine comes in. Then we'll change this out until the rest to the back. We've removed pretty much the rest of the exhaust system. So this connects to the header as you saw in the front. This is the mid pipe. So this is your entire exhaust system. This, for all intents and purposes, is the mid silencer or resonator, and this is the muffler itself. Just for terminology's sake, anything that's in the middle is pretty much considered a silencer or a resonator. Anything at the back is considered a muffler. That's the common terminology. But in reality, every single silencer in the entire world is also a muffler. Now that's a bit confusing, isn't it? So we'll be replacing this whole thing with stainless piping. This is not stainless because as you can see it's kind of rusty already. So we'll be changing out the back with a Tanabe muffler because the guy wants more sound. Again, the muffler's job is to muffle. To muffle means to make quiet. Changing out the muffler to something less muffling means it has more noise. I really don't understand why people confuse it. It's muffle. To muffle is to make less noise. And the piping size we'll be using for this one is the same size as this one, 1.75 inches. And no bigger is not better. That is a horrible misconception again that is on the internet. So you don't use 2-inch, you don't use 2.5, and definitely you don't use 3 inches. As much as possible, you keep it the same size as stock. Because the bigger you go, you make the engine air fuel mixture inside leaner. It's not about back pressure. There's none of that. That's also another BS term. There is no such thing as back pressure. There is no equivalent pressure pushing air in back through the exhaust. So no, that is another horrible term which I really hate reading. There's no pressure except for whatever atmospheric pressure we have right now. It's what we're breathing. That is the only pressure that we have here. There is nobody with a hose at the back of the car forcing air back to the engine. So it's not back pressure. When you make the exhaust pipe bigger, you make the engine leaner, which screws up the air fuel mixture. And if you have a leaner mixture, you actually lose power. That is where you hear all of these terms like sungao, singao, or whatever. That is a strictly Filipino term. And then if you ask 10 people, you'll get 10 different answers. All of them are still wrong. done with our Civic upgrades, and then here are the results after the ECU remap. So we did a baseline dyno first. This is it. This is our baseline dyno here. So it's about 80 horses. That's a bit on the low side. See, what's the mileage of this thing anyway? 73,000. That's actually not very high. Well, well, that's why he's here. Typically for the 1.8 Civics, we should see around 90, 100 horses stock. So this is 80, so it's making about 10 horses below that. Again, that's why the reason he's here, because he feels that the car is slow. So we just confirmed that it is a little bit slower than stock. Then this dotted line here, this is after our intake and exhaust upgrades. So we went from 80 to about 90, so we got a total of about 10 horses on average. Here on the bottom end, we actually got a 15 horse bump here from 30 to 45. And this is about 10 horses all the way here. So we're averaging 10, 15 horses just with the intake and exhaust. That's actually not bad for an intake exhaust. Usually we see around 7 to 10 combined. Then this third solid line here is the ECU remap. So we ended up at around 103 horsepower here. So that's a total of almost more than 20 horses from stock to this one. This is much more like it, but again, it's a little bit below standard. Your Civic 1.8 is completely healthy. We should see final power in the 110, maybe 120 range after tuning. So, torque also increased. Here, there's our stock torque here, 95, and then we went to 145 here. So the torque is actually pretty nice, and you feel it right away at 2,200 RPM. So you're making, even here, when it goes down, you're still making a lot more torque than whatever it is in stock form. So this is actually what you feel when you step on the pedals. Not this one, it's what you feel is torque. And drive this thing normally, you should get about 8 to 10% better mileage, because what happens is, before you used to step on the pedal this much, you get this much power. Now you step only half, you get the same power. Instinct, without thinking about it, you let go of your right foot. That's where the fuel economy savings comes from. And most of your driving is done within the 2,000 to about maybe 4,000. Apparently it's high for most people. It's not like, gee, 92 out of 100 people I talk to say that they never go past 4,000 RPM because they think that the car will explode. Stupid notion, but very, very, very rarely do people reach the 7,000 RPM red line. That almost doesn't happen here in the city, and that, again, most people don't even bother trying to reach that. They just stay at this part, and that's 99% of your driving is just here, and where you're not even utilizing the full 103 horsepower of your car. You're only utilizing around 70, and that's already at full throttle. This 70 horse mark at 4,000 is full throttle already. So if you're doing only like 10%, 15% throttle, your horsepower is somewhere here in the 30, 35, 20 region here. So something that most people don't realize. So again, with remapping, you get the additional power, and then you get the additional fuel savings as well.